All right, so if you have your Bibles, I would ask you to turn to Daniel chapter 5. And if you'll take just about 5-10 minutes to read Daniel chapter 5, I'll give you a minute to do that. And when you do, turn back to the video. So Daniel chapters 4 and 5 belong together, and both of them have to do with two pagan kings who are powerful and arrogant and doing things contrary to God's will. One is Nebuchadnezzar and one is Belshazzar. And King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream in which he becomes like an animal and becomes like a beast. And this dream disturbs him. He apparently has an experience in which he becomes like a beast. And when he goes to Daniel and asks for an interpretation, the interpretation basically that Daniel gives him is that to the extent that he, the king, Nebuchadnezzar, uses his power in demonic ways contrary to God, to the degree that he does that, he dehumanizes himself and his subjects and becomes animal-like, becomes beast-like. Nebuchadnezzar hears this interpretation, understands it, and apparently repents and humbles himself to some degree and is spared the fullness of God's judgment. King Belshazzar is very, very wicked. Basically during a party, there's a hand writing the words many tekel and parson, and he's disturbed by this vision. And he comes to Daniel and asks Daniel, what does it mean? I'm going to read just the last part of Daniel chapter 5. This is the message that was written, many tekel and parson. This is what these words mean. Many means numbered. God has numbered the days of your reign and has brought it to an end. Tekel means weighed. You have been weighed on the balances and have not measured up. You've been found wanting. Parson means divided. Your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then, at Balthazar's command, Daniel was dressed in purple robes. A gold chain was hung around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom, which, of course, didn't last very long. Didn't matter much because that very night, Balthazar, the Babylonian king, was killed, and Darius the Mede took over his kingdom at the age of 62. So much for that promotion. He was promoted in a kingdom that was only going to last a few more hours. So Daniel's promotion was very, very short-lived. But here's the idea: is that Belshazzar, like all kings, and like all authority, will one day be brought before the judgment seat of God. And the question is, will our lives and the way that we wielded power and authority, will it be found wanting? Will we have ruled and reigned and used our authority and power? We'll give just a minute. Someone out biking, so we give them a minute to pass. As always, I'm always doing these videos in our public parks. It's the beauty and one of the treasures of the area I live in, just some beautiful parks. But it means that filming these videos sometimes comes with some unedited errors, such as someone going by on a bike. So looking around, make sure that it's safe to cross the street here. And so God ultimately will hold all human beings, especially those in authority, accountable for the way in which they've used and exercised their authority and power. And that is not something that I think a lot of people in authority and positions of power realize or acknowledge. And in fact, a lot of people in human authority act as if they'll never be held accountable to anyone, and that they themselves are the highest authority, which is just a foolish way for us to live, because at some point all of us will be held accountable for our lives and be made to give an account. And we don't want to hear the Lord say that we've been weighed and found wanting, or that our lives don't measure up. We want to hear instead Jesus say, well done, good and faithful servant. But I want to take this time to talk about just a phenomenon that I never thought we'd see rising again in our world, which is the spread of anti-Semitism. There is a deep hatred for the Jewish people that is rational, it's demonic, and it rears its head seemingly every few generations. And when you read or listen to any anti-Semitic literature, which I'm not, of course, not encouraging you to do, but if you look at any of it, it's just irrational, the things that are said about the Jewish people and the Jewish faith. And sooner or later, those that espouse anti-Semitic rhetoric will raise the whole idea of the Jewish people being God's chosen people. And the deep venom, the poisonous venom comes out when they eventually get around to mentioning that, which of course they don't believe, or they say they don't believe. But here's the thing, is if those espousing anti-Semitic views did not actually at some deep level believe that it's true that the Jews are God's chosen people, there'd be no reason for them to be worked up in hatred and jealousy over it. I don't believe in the fairy, the tooth fairy, and if some group of humans were said to be the chosen people of the tooth fairy, that wouldn't bother me much at all, because that I would. But what do I care if they're the chosen people of the tooth fairy? If I don't actually believe that, that would not be an idea that would be very threatening to me at all. And what I want to say about anti-Semitism is I believe it's actually evidence of the truth of the biblical claim. I believe that the reason that anti-Semitism rises again and again is because of the rebellious hearts of human beings. And deep down inside, they know it's true. They know that the biblical claim is true, that Yahweh is Lord, that the Jews are his chosen instrument through which salvation has come, and that God has raised up one particular Israelite through whom all of the plans of God come into focus, and that, of course, is Jesus Christ. And so ultimately, I think that what anti-Semitism is it comes out of a deep bitterness about the fact that Jesus Christ is Lord, Yahweh is the King of the universe, and that through his chosen people, the Jewish people, he has set in plan their salvation. Now, that should actually gladden the hearts of all the peoples of the world. We should be deeply, deeply glad that the God of the universe has set in motion a plan to redeem us and to redeem our world. But the problem is that plan of salvation requires something. It requires that we submit to God, that we bow to him, that we acknowledge him, that we kneel before him, and we confess that he is Lord. We surrender to him. And the sinful human heart simply does not want to do that. There is a deep reaction against that. And the Jewish people are an embodiment of God's claim upon us. And of course, the ultimate embodiment is Jesus Christ. And so the human heart must make a decision when confronted with the truthfulness of who God is. And there's really only two choices that are open. We can feign indifference. We can feign, we can feign a sense of just unbelief and indifference, and we can act like we don't care, but truthfully we do care. And anti-Semitism is an exposure of the fact that we actually do care, right? We care very deeply. And so this claim of God upon our lives requires, one, that we either bow down and acknowledge who God is, and we surrender to him and we yield ourselves to him, or we resist and we respond in bitterness and anger and hatred. And what anti-Semitism is that other reaction. It's the reaction of sinful humanity that does not want to surrender, that does not want to give themselves over to whom God is and serve him as their king. It is a resistance. It's a demonic resistance that says, I would rather damn myself. I would rather become beast-like. I'd rather become demonic than to give myself to the God of creation. That's what anti-Semitism is. I'm convinced that it is one of the biggest pieces of evidence that we have for the truthfulness of the biblical message. It is, unfortunately, it's a very dark piece of evidence, right? Because it shows us what happens when humanity ultimately resists their rightful surrender to the King of creation, to Yahweh. But the reality is that all humanity, even that which resists God and that which becomes beast-like and demonic and co-opted by evil, even that will someday be found wanting and judged before God. So one of the things that's interesting about the Jewish people is that they've outlasted the Philistines, the Amalekites, the Canaanites. They've outlasted the ancient Egyptians. They've outlasted the Babylonians and the Assyrians and the Persians and the Medes and the ancient Romans and the ancient Greeks under Alexander. They've resisted the Third Reich. They've resisted the Holy Roman Empire. They've outlasted the Soviet Union, and they'll outlast any other forces of wickedness that arise in this world, because their God, our God, is an eternal God. He's the everlasting Lord. He does not grow weary or faint. He does not grow tired. Even young, robust youth, even strong empires will someday show their weakness and buckle under the strain of sin and death and just their own mortality. Yet the everlasting God, those who wait upon him, shall renew their strength. They shall walk, not grow weary. They shall run and never faint. They shall mount up and rise up on eagle's wings, those who wait upon the Lord. And, there's a lot of talk in our day about being found on the right side of history. History is a weird thing because it takes 200 or 300 years sometimes to understand what is the right side of history. There are things that seem inevitable. There are things that seem like they'll last forever. There are things that seem like they cannot be resisted. And yet, all human cultures, all human governments, all forms of powers in this world are finite things, no matter what they think about themselves, no matter what they project out on social media, no matter what they project about themselves or what other people believe about themselves. All human forms of structure and authority are finite and will not last forever. But the people of God, not because of who we are, but because of who God is. We are part of something eternal. We are anchored to an eternal kingdom. And what E. Stanley Jones said, an eternal kingdom, an unchanging person, and an eternal kingdom, which is centered on Jesus Christ. And so the ultimate message of chapter 5 of Daniel, it's comical because Daniel's being promoted in a kingdom that is about to collapse, and there's some funny irony there because King Belshazzar thinks that he is doing Daniel such a favor by making him third in his kingdom. But King Belshazzar does not realize that his kingdom is about to fold and crumble. And that actually Daniel actually belongs already to an eternal kingdom. And his rank within that kingdom matters more than his rank in any earthly kingdom. And that's the practical application, okay? Is that when we think about what matters for eternity, it does not matter what our rank in our company is, where we're held, as far as in the rank in our culture, or really even in our church or our community or neighborhood or group of friends. Our ultimate ranking matters where do we stand in relationship to the kingdom of God. For it alone is the one thing that will last forever. And we as Christian people, along with our Jewish brothers and sisters, we need to remember that everything in this culture, everything in this world is passing away, that only God's kingdom will last forever, and we need to be concerned about our ranking within it, our position in it. Well, I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been inspirational to you, and hopefully interesting as well.